How's it going, everyone? It is Ira here from Boulder Road IO. In today's episode of Unsolicited Advice, we're actually looking at railroads and a company called RailPod. This is the device that they manufacture, and it is able to detect issues on railroads. And in the episode, we're going to be introducing a new concept at the beginning. We're going to explore some interesting stuff regarding the industry and the device itself. Like, have you ever wondered why railroads still exist today? And specifically, if you're on a rail, an actual train, have you ever wondered how they actually keep those things in order and why not many trains actually go off the tracks and crash and you don't see any reports about that? Well, you probably don't wonder that, but RailPod is behind the reason why railroads are so safe. And so we're going to go through what is a railroad, why they still exist, and our solution design for making the data on RailPod more presentable. So, this is the basics of a railroad here. You see the rail ties here, these wooden things. They can be steel or concrete. Then you have the rails and the fastening device here that actually holds the rail to the tie. And the rail is broken down into three parts: the head, the web, and the foot. Now, what's interesting is that the reason the rocks are here, if you're a civil engineer, you probably know this, but I never actually asked myself, well, why are there rocks on all of the rails? And then the reason is because of drainage. You don't want build up, and there are several layers to a track bed, and these are them. The ballast and sub-ballast are for drainage, of course. And just another look here. This is another picture of the rail with the parts labeled. And it's important to note that on every rail, there are actually small sections that need to be welded together. And so the real question here is, if you're trying to make railroads safe and you have a, let's say, 25 to 50 ton machine with a ton of train cars or passenger carts going over these rocks, sticks, and steel at 50 to 30 miles per hour, what could possibly go wrong? So I managed to find a report from the Federal Railroad Administration, and these are all the types of issues that could go wrong with railroads. And you can see the pictures here of defects that would be occurred and come up. So if you have a machine that's going over fast, you're going to be cracking the rail. There's weather issues. You can imagine the summer heat, peak of summer. Like what temperatures could these rails get at in the open sun with no coverage? And then there's snow. So year round, these things are being beaten up by the weather and the trains that travel over them. And so you're going to get wear on the web, the head, and the feet. And you can see that, this is a pretty bad damage here where there's cracks. So the real question is, well, how the heck are you supposed to pick up this damage before it becomes an issue for your train? And the answer is coming back to RailPod real quickly. So RailPod has LiDARs on the bottom and top of their device, along with a number of other sensors. They're able to pick up the track geometry, which is basically how the rails are stabilized. Because you can imagine, you got two rails on the left and right, and then you have this tiny little wheel for this gigantic machine to go over, and any misalignment can really screw up the train itself. There's the rail wear, there's any clearance issues above the railroad, there's flaws in how it's actually welded together, and then there's actually mapping out your rail on a mapping system. And this data is reported to you in a central dashboard here. You can see these are the issues that pop up, and this is the track geometry, the rail profile, and some of the clearance things. So to jump back and say, well, what are the other technologies here? There's a bunch. I've put this report here from the FRA, which is the Federal Railroad Administration, and there's hundreds of different technologies all analyzing different aspects here because, I mean, if you sit back and ask yourself, well, what are railroads actually used for here? They across in North America and globally, they transport 39.53 million cartloads of material across. This was just a stat for North America, and the amount paid to do that transportation was $81 billion. It's actually a cheaper way of transporting gross, big, massive bulky materials. It's cheaper than trucking in most cases. That's why we have 1.47 million freight carts in North America. So, let's jump into the redesign here. You learned a little bit about rails, how they exist, and why the railroads still exist. It ultimately comes down to the cost per ton of transport. If you ever check out Elon Musk's presentation on the Tesla truck, not the Cybertruck, but the freight car truck, he talks about how it may be possible to get the Tesla trucks to a lower cost per ton of transport than trains. We'll see how that goes. I believe in Elon Musk, so it's probably going to happen. That was a complete side tangent from this dashboard. This dashboard redesign, we focused on the railway owners and translating the information RailPod gives you into a much more, let's just put it in one place with some interactive design. You have the map here. You could zoom in. The map isn't functional in the prototype, but it will show you your whole rail network, any defects across that. Then there's a bulk issue log. So you can imagine every chip, metal issue detected by RailPod will be flagged here with the issue type. So you can quickly search that by time, date, and so forth. And if you want really specific stuff, you can generate specific reports that are templates based on what you need as a railroad operator. The last portion here is every time RailPod goes through and does an inspection, it will create a inspection log, and that's basically everything, every point of data that it was introduced to as it traveled. And we created an interactive map here with X's to indicate the issues that you run into. You can again go search the defect issues across the one inspection. There's an estimate for cost. There's the rail analysis with selections for graph. And so you can add more to this graph and see it on the map. There's the rail profile. And the last part is just another inspection map, full view, so that you can control and see what the inspection looked like. So that was our quick solution design of how we would optimize this reporting here for RailPod, and a little bit of information about why the heck do railroads still exist and what are they doing today. So thanks again, everyone. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll catch you next week with another episode of Unsolicited Advice. And we're going to be introducing more information about the industry and technology at the beginning of these episodes so that they're more applicable to more people. So thanks again for watching, and yeah, enjoy the rest of your day.